All right, so you guys caught me marking all this up, and we're going to be replacing a section of the lower half of this kelly bar. And what the purpose of this does is, this is a thicker wall section that will help grab the square bar that's on the inside of it, and the down pressure, or the crowd as they say, is only held together by friction, grip strength between this piece, this section here, and the inner kelly bar, which is over there. So this needs to be real tight, and after time these edges just wear out and they don't grab anymore. So that's what we're doing here, is we're replacing a section of this. You can tell this is already kind of thin, and it's got some worn out areas here to where it doesn't grab as well anymore. And this one has been pieced together a couple times, one there and another one actually up here. But being that this section will be new, that'll be fine. And so now the goal is just to cut this off and replace it with a new one that's a thicker wall. I believe this section over here is usually about 5/8 thick, and that over there seems to be about 3/4 thick. So it's a tighter fit on that square. So now I'm gonna be cutting it, so hang tight. Okay, so before we go too far, you know, I tried marking a square line around there, and it is very difficult because you can't really trust these edges. So I may have to trim them up again because they'll be out of square. It won't be exactly right. So at least if we can get it off, we can kind of see where we need to straighten out and what we need to straighten out. We can put a framing square here that way and framing square that way, kind of make sure that we're fairly straight. And so let's chop this guy off. Okay, watch it carefully so may throw parts at you. Our nemesis dirt is in there. I got a little bit of the cable.
Yep. Much soon.
Stand back. Okay, so I told the customer I caught the cable, but that's all right because it's a little bit of an old area. But now that'll let me clean this whole area up and get all the dirt from out around the corners, and I can remark this within half an inch. We're all right. One of the things I was noticing is that this piece may not have been put on exactly parallel with the whole bar. So now what that creates is no matter how square I cut this, it may not actually sit correctly according to the end of that piece there, because it's not square, or not parallel, or in line I should say. So let me clean this up again, and then I'll cut it back again and go from there. Right. So that's fairly square. Now I'll clean that up with a grinder, but my next attention will be to this guy right here. What we're going to do is we're going to put a bevel on this guy right here so that we can have some good penetration on that other piece. And so here we go. Sometimes I had to make two cuts because torches don't like cutting at a bevel with the material being cold. So the first cut will preheat it in a sense if it starts to get serrations, and then I'll move back towards my marked line. This one has a little bit of a taper, so this line is correct. Okay, so I got that cut up. It looks like serrations, but it actually came out pretty good. And these corners, I'll just fix those with the grinder. I'll just make sure that the bevel stays continuous all the way around. But I came out about as smooth as I can do it. And so now it's just prep that in, stick it all back together, and start welding. We'll have a gap, probably about an 1/8 inch gap or so between the two pieces, and that way we can get as close to full penetration as possible, and then glue it all together. All right, next step. so now that we got this all put back together, now the goal will be to space this out, give it a 8-inch gap or so, root gap, and straighten out the sides, make sure it's nice and straight. But now you can see how tight it is right around here, and that way when it twists, the outer one twists, it puts a friction grip on the inner one, so that way they can push down on the kellybar and crowd it. So we had to separate them because I don't want to cut this flange off. It's an 1.25 or 1.5 plate flange. That would have added a tremendous amount of work. So it's best to pull it out, add this section, and weld it back together. So now it's gonna be a little bit of a challenge, right? Because sometimes these guys aren't straight; they're slightly bent, and the spacing in here is getting kind of tough to get straight to. But once we do, then it's just a matter of preheating and welding it up. Now another challenge that can happen here with these things is that these guys will be very magnetized and very difficult to tack. And I find that using flux core works really well to counteract the effects of the weld, to say. It still doesn't like to weld, but once you get it on there, or actually get some good tacks on there, it changes to where you can finally put some good weld passes. But stick welding, magnetized stuff, stinks. And one of the ways that I find that works really well to beat that is heat. And heating up the part, or heating up both parts, will help allow for tacking and welding. So I don't know how magnetized this is, but we will find out as we start tacking, and maybe you guys will see that. I didn't bring my welding lens on here. I didn't bring it with me, so you won't see any weld shots, to say, but we'll be able to see it from a distance at least. So all right, next step. So now we got this tacked up. You see a bit of a gap there, what looks to be about 5/32 that I did with the rod. Same thing over here, So now it's a matter of preheating this thing. It's already a little warm, but not much. Preheating this guy, and I will weld about half of this here, and then jump to the other side and weld the other opposite half, and then jump back to this side and weld the other half. And what tends to happen is it can warp if you're not careful. That's why I put these big heavy tacks here. Even though they weren't really a good penetrating weld, I will grind those out later. So just as I did there, that's ground out that way. That way I can get that out. I'm sorry, I can weld that up. Then in this direction, I'll grind this half of the tack out, and then I'll be able to fill that side up. So it's just a little give and take of both. That way you can hold it in place and not allow it to warp. So looking good so far. So here we go. Here's a section of where I stopped halfway. Hopefully you guys can see that. I'll put a mirror and a flashlight on that. maybe. So that's nice and flat in there, worked out pretty good. So that's where I'm stopping on, as far as on this side, and then I'll do the other side. But I'm gonna feather that out on the opposite side. Here's where I feathered out that tack in the corner, so that way I can at least get 100% penetration. Now I don't like to put a bevel on both sides. Oops, sorry. Put bevel on both sides because it just takes up, that's just too much welding. Now when you can do the same thing with this amount of welding, well then that's fine, at least in my eyes. So each has their own, right? Like I say, this is how I do it, not how to do it. So just thought I'd show you that before I completely closed up that root. This side came out good like that. I got a little pinhole there I'll take care of, and this side too. So looking good so far. Means got a little brush, clean it up with a brush before I put the next pass, but that's all pretty good. It's turning out good. This is plenty hot, so we'll just keep moving. All right. Okay. So coming along. That's the second pass, I believe. Was it second pass or third pass? Second pass, I believe. So it's looking good. Now I just throw about 1, 2, 3, maybe about 6 or so more passes, top, bottom, and then about 3 or 4 on the face. So we're getting there. Let's keep trucking. So that'll do it. I don't know if you caught me welding in the reverse pattern in this direction. Why I do that is so that I only have to deal with one actual restart, like this here. So I weld here, then here, and I run over this restart. Sorry, and run over the start, and it'll blend that in. Same thing with that other side, blend that in. So then I only have to worry about this one being a kind of bulky, and sometimes there are pinholes in there because it's so windy out here. So then I only have one area to worry about. Now, if you're noticing this angle and this angle, that is not that it's not a square. It's just this thing was fabricated differently than this one. So, oh, sorry, tripping over my own cables. I believe this was a total of 8 passes. We got 4 on the face, and then there's a 1 root pass, 2 root pass, hot pass, 2 fill, 4 face passes. So it's a lot of welding. Oh, and I was switched over to stick welding versus flux core only because it was just too windy out here. There were starting to be some pinholes that were popping up. And before it got carried away, I decided to go ahead and swap it out with stick welding, and so it worked out all right. But anyway, that's the reason for that. Other than that, normally I park my truck in a direction where it blocks the wind, but I wasn't able to today. I just didn't think about it after I strung all my stuff out. So anyway, that should do it. Thanks for watching, and we shall see you next time.